The once peaceful town of Springwood was now becoming the most feared town on the planet, all thanks to the elusive dream demon Freddy Krueger. Teenagers everywhere were mysteriously dying in their sleep, and nobody could figure out how to make it stop. Eventually, word of this mystery reached two groups of paranormal hunting teenagers who decided to step in. The mystery machine rolled up to Springwood, and out of the vehicle came Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and their lovable dog Scooby-Doo. Meanwhile, the investigation team showed up at the same time. Yu, Yosuke, Chie, Yukiko, Kanji, Naoto, Rise, and their team mascot Teddy all took an interest in this case, and began to scout out the town to ask around. However, they were quick to spot Mystery Inc., who noticed them as well. The two teams recognized each other as separate mystery-solving teams, who kept taking each other's mysteries, forming a rivalry between the two. Fred and Kanji began to argue over who was more qualified to solve this case. Yu thought to himself that they should all be working together, but Fred and Kanji had already begun arguing with each other, and even Scooby and Teddy seemed to have bad blood with each other. With neither team backing down, the two gangs of mystery solvers decided to stick it to the other team by solving this mystery first. So who can pull it off before the others can? Can they solve it at all before the Dream Demon takes them both out? Find out in this thrilling episode of Galaxy Grudge Match. Looks like we've got another mystery on our hands, but it's okay, because I've got the solution with the best team of teenage sleuths I know. I'm Max, and I'm siding with Mystery Incorporated over the investigation team. First of all, think about how long Scooby and the gang have been doing this thing. For nearly 50 years, the gang has been solving mysteries, and they haven't always been guys in masks. The investigation team went on one mission to catch Adachi, and then Yu left town. Naoto is the only one with experience to rival the gang. I can think of several instances where the gang had to compete against real monsters like zombies on Zombie Island. In Scooby-Doo 2 they had to fight real monsters, and they've defeated the Phantom Virus. I'll grant you that none of these enemies are quite like Freddy Krueger, but the Scooby Gang's main method of catching the baddies is something that has worked on the Springwood slasher before. As you all know, the gang has a thing for traps, mostly Fred, and they like to set them up in order to catch the bad guy. Well, in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy was able to get the better of Freddy by setting up a series of traps for when she pulled Freddy out, and it went off pretty well, with Freddy walking into each trap. The gang only need to get Shaggy and Scooby to distract Freddy and pull him out of the dream world, something I believe the duo can manage. I know you all have this image of Scooby and Shaggy being complete cowards, but really think about them. Day after day, they go up against actual potential masked murderers and actual supernatural beings, something that would make any normal man run for the hills. But, with merely the promise of a Scooby snack, these two stand up to these guys, fuck with them by dressing up like nurses or some shit, and get them caught. Scooby and Shaggy are probably braver than anyone on the investigation team even. At least when they're in the TV world, they know they're probably safe with ultra-powerful personas on their side. Scooby and Shaggy just have their wits. I argue that Scooby and Shaggy can last longer in the dream world than any of the investigation team, and could be more creative in combat against Freddy Krueger. I've seen Scooby and Shaggy get twisted, mangled, and flattened, but they've ended up just fine. So if Freddy tries to drop them on a bed of spikes, they'll most likely just prick themselves and leap off the bed holding their rears in pain. If that happened to you, or Chie, or anyone on your team, well, it won't be a very pretty sight. Freddy may have many ways to insta-kill Scooby and Shaggy, but I don't think he'd use them before they pull Freddy out of the dream world and into their trap. The fact that Shaggy can already wish for things to happen can definitely help. No joke, Shaggy and Scooby have had multiple instances where they've wished for something and it just happened out of nowhere. So, once they pull Freddy out, they may be able to wish that he was already tied up. But here's the thing, it isn't just enough to kill Freddy in the real world. They need the holy weapons to fully get rid of him, and that's where Velma comes into play. Velma is a genius and can research very well. It wouldn't take long to find out about the time Nancy buried his bones and poured holy water on it, and the Mystery Gang could just recreate it. I don't doubt that the investigation team could come to a similar conclusion, but when it comes to distracting Freddy and not getting killed by his reanimated bones protecting his grave, I don't think they have as good of a shot as Scooby and Shaggy. Remember, despite having higher stats in the TV world, they're average humans in the real world, and so, if Freddy stabs them, drops them, or turns them into a meatball, it's game over. I don't see Freddy toying with them as much either, since they don't act out on their fear as badly as Scooby and Shaggy. Scooby and Shaggy scream and run. The team mostly stands frozen in fear without screaming much. I could also see Kanji and Yosuke shit-talking Freddy. Freddy may not find that as fun and decide to end things quicker. So, in the end, I think the Scooby Gang has what it takes to solve this mystery. I mean, these guys lived through the Blair Witch and zombies. They know how to deal with horror. And I believe Freddy's Nightmare will finally come to an end.
Hey all, Brandon again, and I have acquired a new vow. And by that I'll be discussing Yu Narukami's investigation team in regards to solving the mystery of the Springwood slasher. To first cover the blood-soaked elephant in the room, the investigation team have basically taken down a criminal that could be compared to Freddy in the form of Toru Adachi, TV shenanigans and all. This is accompanied by the fact Yu's team is consistently more powerful than Mystery Incorporated. I know Shaggy and Scooby have their moments of absurd showings of power, but I doubt Daphne is going to be scoring them a victory anytime soon. Though, if you know anything about Persona, you may be asking, wait, can't the investigation team only use their personas in the TV world? If you've never played Persona, you probably don't know what I'm talking about at all, but to which I say, maybe, but I doubt it. C's from Persona 3 are the only team that have shown to use their powers in the real world at all times, either through using an invoker or during the Dark Hour. However, in Persona 4 Arena, both Akihiko Sanada and Mitsuru Kirijo can summon their personas without the use of an invoker, and fight against the investigation team. And Yu is stronger, if not on par with them in their abilities. But more importantly, it's shown in Persona 5 that while the Phantom Themes of Hearts can only summon their personas in the cognitive realm at first, the dimensional anomalies caused at the end of the game by Yaldabaoth allow Joker and Ko to summon their personas when critical. With Freddy presumably causing havoc and his presence seething throughout the air, I think it's very likely the investigation team could wield their personas against him, even outside the dream world. Let it be known that all these games are canonically tied to each other, and this is without mentioning Persona Q1 and 2, where they do use their personas freely. But back to the debate at hand. As even without their personas, Yu's friends have certain legs up over Mystery Incorporated. Chie, for example, is a master martial artist, and more importantly, Naoto's from a lineage of detectives. While, yeah, Scooby and Ko do have far more experience with this sort of thing, I don't think any of them come from a lineage like Naoto. Except Fred, but he's from a lineage of trap artists instead. Though, when he's not doing Happy Tapioca, he and his gang are catching curly mustache men in costumes they can find at Party City. I don't want to sell the Scooby Gang short or anything, but you can't deny that more often than not, they tackle non-serious threats. Whereas the investigation team deals with literal murderers and their deepest, darkest fears. Sin aside, there's also the fact that they have the numbers advantage. Kanji and Yosuke could sabotage Mystery Incorporated, while the investigation team has still more members to boot. And I haven't even mentioned their abilities with their personas. Rise could scan the entire TV world with hers, so she could likely do the same to track down Freddy in the dream world. And they've got enough power to easily take Freddy down, especially Yu being a wildcard with a myriad of different powers. It's true that Freddy would have to get more creative in finding ways to hurt Scooby and Mystery Incorporated due to their cartoony physics, but that doesn't excuse the fact Yu and his team from the get-go are stronger. There's the fact they've also mastered wielding a Persona 2, which requires overcoming their innermost darkest fear, showing they're more confident in their own abilities as opposed to the Scooby Gang, whose emotions, and thus their flaws, are much more exaggerated. Shaggy isn't Shaggy unless he's scared, scrappy, and hungry. What can Freddy even conjure up that the investigation team literally hasn't even endured before? They've already gone through their worst case scenarios. I won't deny that the investigation team will be scared of Freddy, but each member has overcome their own emotional roadblocks, so this slasher shouldn't be anything new for them. Freddy would be overwhelmed by their sheer numbers advantage and having multiple powerful spirits attacking him at once. Let it be known that the team is powerful themselves even without their personas. They all survived in the epicenter of a blast created by Nebula Oculus, who can level an entire town. They also should be superior to the C's. I personally disagree with scaling them to Persona 5, but even without that, this means they're faster and stronger than Freddy Krueger and the Scooby Gang. But semantics aside, I believe Yu and the investigation team will make history through their powers, abilities, numbers advantage, and overall tone and team dynamic. Plus the fact they've tackled a similar criminal in the past makes me more confident in their walk in the park, as opposed to the bumpy road the Mystery Incorporated van will have to crawl on.
You bring up fair points for the investigation team, but I'm told there's a Scooby snack in it for me if I win this thing, so let me argue against some of your points. When it comes to personas, I'm still not sure about them being able to use them outside of the TV world. They have referenced several times in Persona 4 that they can't summon their personas outside the TV world, and Teddy even wishes he could. Plus, wouldn't the ability to summon their personas in the real world end all of the tension and fear from the team during the game? If they could do that all along, nobody would have ever been at risk. Even if they can somehow do it in spin-offs, it contradicts the source material, which should take precedence above all else. So, unfortunately, I can only see them summoning personas in the dream world, because they can do whatever they want there. But I do feel like that's the limit of their imaginative powers in the dream world. Scooby and Shaggy have shown to be more creative than the members of the investigation team, and have done wild shit like become Yellow Lanterns before. What if they bust that out in the dream world? I'll admit that personas are really powerful, but against someone like Freddy, I could see him just turning them instantly into action figures. Can they really beat someone who controls their very universe they're fighting in, the dream world? Nobody in Persona can warp reality like he can. Some Persona characters can boast the power to destroy a universe, but I haven't seen very many actually control it. He's a high-powered reality warper they've never had to face before. Adachi was similar to Freddy, but only in personality and their ability to welcome people to prime time. Meanwhile, Scooby and the gang went through the apocalypse and defeated the evil entity, a reality warper that wanted to destroy everything. Yet, the power of friendship and love helped them win the day. Cheesy, yes, but such things have overcome Freddy before. Plus, I think the Scooby Gang just has more resolve and heroism than the investigation team, and have much less stuff for Freddy to pull from to torment them in their dreams. Remember, Kanji and Yosuke at one point seriously considered murdering a man who they thought was the killer, wanting to strand him in the TV world. That guy turned out to be innocent, by the way, so if you chose to kill that guy, you might be awful. This doesn't mean much now, but originally Yukiko was going to be the killer all along. That's changed now, but I'm sure you can see it, considering how sad her past is. Which leads me to Freddy's ammunition. Each member of the investigation team had to overcome some heavy emotions to some of their personas. They're like scabs that Freddy can open back up, making them deal with their problems all over again. Or even making things worse. You said they've all dealt with their worst case scenario, but believe me, Freddy can make things much worse. Kanji's sexuality, Yosuke learning that Saki found him annoying, Naoto's gender, these are all very useful for Freddy, and can be made even more painful than when they initially confronted it. The Scooby Gang? Scooby and Shaggy might have an eating addiction. Fred's pretty sensitive about his scarf.
Why don't you mind your own business, pal?
And Daphne had a problem with being a damsel in distress, but she solved that when she beat up the bad guy and kicked him down a hole, effectively making him the damsel in distress.
Now who's the damsel in distress? Me? Straight up.
There isn't much. You may be inclined to argue that since they've dealt these issues before, they can do it again, right? Well, actually, each of them fell into great despair when they saw their shadows, and it took the rest of the gang to fight the shadow for them while they just looked on. But that's okay, right? The entire gang is here! So if Freddy does that, they can just help each other through it again, right? Not really. Freddy likes to split up his victims, even if they come into the dream world together, like in Nightmare 3. So the investigation team is absolutely getting split up by Freddy, and they'll all have to take him on one by one, something they aren't used to. And I can bet you that's when the walls start to crack for the team. Yukiko is definitely out when this happens, I can say that much. So much for your numbers advantage. Meanwhile, the Scooby-Doo gang routinely split up. It's even a catchphrase. Let's split up and search for clues. I know I mentioned that Kanji and Yosuke were willing to kill a man, but when it comes to sabotaging the mystery gang, why would they? They want to see the bastard son of 100 maniacs get stopped. There's a lot on the line here. I also doubt Chie, Yu, or Naoto would even let them try something like that. Speaking of Naoto, as much as I really like her, I feel like Velma might be a better detective, and could figure out Freddy's shtick before everyone needs to go to sleep. Most Scooby-Doo adventures only take one night, whereas mysteries in Persona 4 can take months. And with Freddy, you're gonna want to know what you're up against before you go to sleep, or else you're screwed. In the end, I think Freddy's dead, and it'll all be because of those meddling kids.
No, Daphne, the bad guy is not your dad. But anyway, we've talked about personas a lot. And while yes, Teddy and Rise have statements in Persona 4 contradicting my belief they could wield them outside the Midnight Channel, we're talking about an investigation team from after the events of Persona 4, where they're much stronger and more experienced. A lot of characters have shown the ability to summon their personas in a dire situation, such as Fuka in Persona 3, and more notably Labris in Persona Arena, who is a product of the TV world like Teddy's form. Yu even did it once while fighting Sho, though it's kind of vague if the effects of Tartarus were still in effect here, but regardless, there are innumerable instances of both the investigation team, the Seas, and the Phantom Thieves wielding their personas outside of each's cognitive realm. On the advent of Kanji and Yosuke's sabotage plans, there's a very clear difference in them trying to sabotage a group of mystery solvers and being involved in a straight up murder. You would probably disapprove of their actions, but what's done is done. Heck, Chie and Yukiko may even agree with them. But I guess I should tackle the final matter at hand more in this part, and go into detail on things that would occur when faced with Freddy. You boast how much more imaginative and incorruptible Scooby and Shaggy are, but that's a double-edged sword. The investigation team is the group that is more lethal in nature, and thus they can come up with more ideas in the dream realm to actually take Freddy down. And like I said, Naoto, Kanji, and the rest of the group have all come to grips with the things you're claiming could expose them with. That's how they summon their personas in the first place, by accepting these dark sides of their personality. Even if Mystery Incorporated doesn't have the full-fledged weaknesses that make them characters like the investigation team, they're still very clearly going to be scared by Freddy. And universe-bending threats aren't out of the ballpark for them, seen in Persona Q1 and 2. Again, I don't fully agree with them scaling to the Phantom Thieves, but they're able to fight alongside them when the dimensions are abnormal, much like in this circumstance. And plus, I'd say arguing Universal U is much easier said than done than the Dog and Stoner, seeing as he fought Joker in Persona 5 Royal. And again, has Persona Q and Q2 to scale to Joker and Makoto, the Persona 3 one, not Queen. But that's two iffy feats to his name as opposed to one with Scooby, excluding stuff like the Yellow Lantern rings, which are non-standard. And I'll again mention him fighting Sho and Tartarus. But something big I've yet to mention is fear. In Persona, fear is a status ailment, kinda like poison or paralysis. Thing is, some Persona characters are blatantly immune to this. I said before that Yukiko will be scared of Freddy, but her persona has the ability to nullify the effects of fear elements and heal her party. And Yu, being a wildcard, has personas like Yatagarasu that are literally immune to fear. This team of teens is incredibly skilled at deducing enemy weak points, especially in this circumstance where fear is a literal characteristic in Persona. This puts a major dent in Freddy's shtick. Freddy will also have to find ways to get past each party member's unique gifts and talents. Yukiko can heal, as I said earlier, but each party member has specific elements they're immune to and can damage Freddy with. Just a ton of variables all around. Again, I'll mention that Yu is a wildcard, meaning he has the entire kitchen sink and library of personas he can throw at Freddy. I know you'll argue that Freddy would sever their team, but Rise has means to communicate with all of them indirectly no matter where they are. Shaggy, Scooby, Velma, Freddy, and Daphne have more experience in this sort of thing, and are inherently less human, even when compared to the teens who can summon what are basically ghosts to them at their beck and call. But I believe their sheer willpower, their ability to nullify Freddy's main fear factor, literally, and their numbers advantage give them the win, plus their potential means of sabotage. Inaba's mystery-solving teams will take down this slasher for good. With the birth of the Galaxy Arcana, we advise you to comment down below any predictions you may have, so we can lead our two teams to solving this mystery.
Comment down any leads you may have that can help us solve this mystery. Check back in for part 2, where we'll see if Springwood's nightmare will finally come to an end.